Have you ever wondered why you sometimes make decisions that don't feel like your own? Why you agree to things you don't truly want? Or why you stay silent when deep down you know something is wrong? That's not just weakness or bad luck. It's manipulation. The truth is, manipulation surrounds us every single day. It hides in conversations, advertisements, relationships, and even the people we trust the most. The scariest part? It works so quietly that most people don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. There are 3 powerful ways you are being manipulated right now, and once you see them, you'll start to recognize how deeply they influence your life. The first way is fear tactics. Fear is one of the oldest tools of control in human history. People in power, whether in politics, workplaces, or even within families, use fear to shape behavior. Think about it. When you're afraid of losing your job, your partner, or even your reputation, you're more likely to stay silent or give in. Fear of rejection makes you tolerate things you hate. Fear of loss makes you cling to toxic people. Fear of authority makes you obey without questioning. It's not always physical threats. It can be subtle, like a boss hinting that your career depends on loyalty, or a partner suggesting you'd never find someone better. Fear pushes you to act against your own interests, and that's exactly how manipulators keep you under control. The second way is gaslighting, one of the darkest psychological weapons. Gaslighting happens when someone makes you doubt your own memory, perception, and even your sanity. It can be as small as, "That never happened, you're imagining it," or as intense as rewriting entire events in your mind. Over time, the victim starts to lose trust in themselves and relies more and more on the manipulator for truth. This is terrifying because once you stop trusting your own thoughts, you become a puppet, easily controlled and reshaped by someone else's version of reality. Gaslighting doesn't only happen in abusive relationships. It happens in politics, in marketing, and even in social groups. It's a way of breaking your mind so that you stop questioning and start accepting. And the third way is emotional triggers. Every human has buttons that, when pressed, cause strong emotional reactions. Manipulators study these buttons, whether it's guilt, anger, sympathy, or even love, and use them to control your choices. Think about guilt. If you really cared about me, you'd do this. Or sympathy. How could you say no after everything I've been through? Or even anger. If you don't agree, you're the enemy. Emotional triggers are powerful because when your feelings are high, your logic shuts down. You don't stop to think, you just react. And in that moment of reaction, you're vulnerable to control. These 3 tactics, fear, gaslighting, and emotional triggers, work together like a trap. First, fear weakens your defenses. Then gaslighting makes you question your own mind. Finally, emotional triggers push you into decisions you'd never make if you were calm and clear-headed. This is how people, organizations, and even entire systems manipulate you without you ever realizing it. The question is, once you see these tactics, will you allow them to keep controlling you, or will you learn how to break free? Have you ever stopped to think about how often fear decides for you? Not your logic, not your dreams, not even your morals. Fear. The truth is, fear is the most ancient and powerful form of control, and it's the first weapon manipulators use against you. Imagine this. You're at work. Your boss hints that if you don't play along, your career might stall. No threats, no yelling, just a subtle tone in their voice. Immediately, your stomach sinks. You feel the weight of bills, the mortgage, your family. Fear takes over, and you nod your head, even when you want to scream no. That's fear manipulation in its purest form, bending your will by dangling the threat of loss. But here's the part most people miss. Fear doesn't have to be loud or violent. It doesn't always come with raised voices or fists on the table. In fact, the most effective fear tactics are silent, invisible, and psychological. They creep into your decisions without you realizing it. Think about relationships. Maybe you've heard these words before. If you leave me, you'll regret it. No one else will love you the way I do. That's not love. It's control through fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of loneliness. Fear that your worth is tied to someone else's approval. And just like that, you stay in a situation that destroys you because leaving feels scarier than staying, and it gets darker. Society itself thrives on fear tactics. Look at the media. Every headline screams disaster. The economy crashing, crime waves, chaos waiting just around the corner. Why? Because fear keeps you watching. Fear keeps you obedient. Fear makes you spend money on things you don't need just to feel safe for one more day. The psychology behind it is chilling. When your brain senses fear, the logical part, the one that makes careful, smart decisions, goes offline. Instead, your survival instincts kick in. Fight or flight. In those moments, you're not weighing pros and cons. You're reacting. You're vulnerable. And manipulators know this. They count on this. Because when fear controls you, they control you. Think about politics. Every election cycle, you're bombarded with fear. Fear of the other side, fear of change, fear of what will happen if you don't vote a certain way. And while you're busy panicking, leaders quietly push their own agendas. You don't question, because fear leaves no room for questions. It leaves only obedience. Here's the haunting truth. Fear tactics don't just make you act against your will, they make you believe you're acting by choice. That's the genius of it. You convince yourself that staying silent, saying yes, or obeying is the smart thing to do, when in reality, it's just the scared thing to do. And if you think this doesn't affect you, let me ask you, how many times have you stayed quiet when you should have spoken up? How many times have you agreed to something because you were afraid of conflict? How many times have you given in, not because you wanted to, but because you feared what would happen if you didn't? Fear tactics work because they're invisible chains. No bruises, no scars, just an invisible cage inside your mind, keeping you exactly where the manipulator wants you, obedient, doubtful, and powerless. And the worst part? The more you obey out of fear, the stronger the cage becomes. Until one day, you realize you've been living someone else's script, not your own. So the next time you feel fear rising in your chest, stop and ask yourself, is this danger real, or is someone trying to control me? Because if you don't, someone else will gladly keep pulling the strings. What if I told you that someone could steal your mind without ever touching you? That's the power of gaslighting, one of the darkest and most dangerous tools of manipulation. It starts small. A casual phrase. You're remembering it wrong. Or, that never happened. You brush it off at first. Maybe they're right. Maybe you did overreact. But slowly, over time, the doubts grow. You stop trusting your memory. You stop trusting your judgment. And eventually, you stop trusting yourself. That's the trap. Gaslighting isn't about controlling your actions. It's about controlling your reality. When someone convinces you that your truth is a lie, they own you. Because if you can't believe your own thoughts, whose thoughts do you rely on? Theirs. Picture this. You find a text message on your partner's phone, something that doesn't feel right. When you confront them, instead of explaining, they laugh. You're paranoid. You're imagining things. You always twist everything. Now you're not only hurt, you're questioning your sanity. Maybe you really are paranoid. Maybe you can't trust your own eyes. That confusion, that self-doubt, that's exactly what they want. And it doesn't just happen in relationships. Gaslighting exists everywhere. Workplaces, friendships, even politics. Imagine a boss telling you, "I never said that deadline," when you know they did. Or a leader rewriting events, saying, "That's not how it happened," even when you saw it yourself. If they repeat it enough, and with enough confidence, people start to believe the lie. Even you. Psychologists call this cognitive erosion, the slow destruction of your confidence in your own mind. It's not one big blow, it's thousands of tiny cuts until you bleed certainty. And once you're uncertain, you're dependent. Dependent on the very person who's rewriting your reality. Gaslighting is terrifying because it's invisible. There are no bruises, no scars, no evidence. To the outside world, everything looks fine. But inside, the victim is breaking, trapped in a prison built out of lies. And here's the cruelest twist. Once gaslighting takes hold, victims often defend their abuser. Why? Because if you can't trust your own mind, the manipulator becomes your only safe source of truth. The very person destroying you becomes the one you cling to. So how do you escape it? Awareness. The moment you recognize the pattern, those words designed to twist your memory, you begin to take back control. The first step is believing yourself, even when someone insists you shouldn't. Gaslighting is not just manipulation, it's psychological warfare, and it can happen to anyone, unless you know the signs. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment and instantly regretted it? That's not just bad timing, that's your emotions being hijacked. And when someone learns how to pull those strings, they can make you do almost anything. This is the third and perhaps the most personal weapon of dark psychology: emotional triggers. Every single one of us has buttons: anger, guilt, sympathy, shame, even love. And manipulators. They learn those buttons like a musician learns an instrument. With the right push, they can play you like a song. Think about guilt. How many times have you heard the phrase, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me"? It doesn't matter if the request was unfair or even toxic. That guilt floods your mind, and suddenly you give in, not because you want to, but because you don't want to feel like the bad guy. Guilt becomes the leash, or anger. Picture this. You're in a debate, and the other person throws an insult that cuts deep. Your face burns, your heart races, and before you know it, you've lost control. You shout, you lash out, and in that moment, they win. Because while you're busy exploding, they're calm, calculating, and steering the outcome exactly where they want it. And then there's sympathy, one of the most dangerous triggers because it disguises itself as kindness. Ever had someone say, "I didn't mean to hurt you, but you know what I've been through"? Suddenly you're not angry anymore. You're comforting them. They hurt you, but somehow you're apologizing. Sympathy turned you upside down. These tactics hit especially hard in American culture because we're taught to value fairness, independence, and compassion. We don't want to be the villain, the weak one, or the cold-hearted one. Manipulators exploit those values. They weaponize the very things that make us human. And here's the science behind it. When your emotions are triggered, your brain releases chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, that hijack your rational thinking. In that chemical storm, logic takes a back seat. You don't pause to think, you react. And manipulators thrive in those split-second reactions. It could be a partner who makes you feel guilty for setting boundaries, a boss who provokes your anger so you look unprofessional, a friend who plays the victim so you carry their responsibilities. Each time, your emotions become their remote control. But here's the chilling truth. Emotional triggers don't just influence small choices. They shape your biggest decisions. Politicians use fear and anger to sway votes. Advertisers use guilt and desire to make you buy. Even social media platforms manipulate your emotions. Outrage, envy, validation, keeping you scrolling for hours while your time and attention are stolen. You're not just manipulated, you're programmed. And unless you recognize those emotional triggers, you'll keep dancing to someone else's tune. Let's put it all together. You are manipulated in 3 powerful ways. First, through fear tactics, keeping you obedient by dangling threats of loss. Second, through gaslighting, rewriting your reality until you no longer trust yourself. And third, through emotional triggers, pushing your buttons until you react exactly how they want. Each tactic alone is dangerous, but combined, they're devastating. Fear breaks down your defenses. Gaslighting erodes your confidence. Emotional triggers push you into choices you'd never make if you were clear-headed. And the most haunting part? These tactics don't just come from strangers or enemies. They come from people you trust, partners, bosses, leaders, friends, even the systems around you. But here's the hope. Once you see the manipulation, it loses power. Once you recognize fear tactics, you can ask, am I acting from fear or reason? When you spot gaslighting, you can ground yourself in your own truth. And when someone pushes your emotional triggers, you can pause, breathe, and take back control. Dark psychology is real. Manipulation is everywhere. But awareness is the antidote. Protect your mind, trust your instincts, and never forget. The moment you stop letting others pull the strings, the game ends.